Easter dinner. Glasses clinking. Candles flickering. Ham in the oven. And her voice, cutting through the warmth like a blade. You'll never be more than a housewife. My son deserves a real woman. They laughed. Her sisters. Her church friends. Even my husband, he didn't flinch. I smiled. Anyway. But my hand shook on the fork. My spine stiffened. My breath caught in my throat like it always did. Because this wasn't new. This was tradition. Hi. I'm Vanessa Brooks. And I've mastered the art of polite silence. The kind of silence that screams when no one's listening. I looked at my plate. The peas. The roast. The china she'd gifted us from her second wedding, still calling it ours as if I hadn't paid half the down payment. I heard her say it again, this time with a chuckle to her left. She can't even carry a full conversation about the stock market, let alone raise an ambitious child. Someone muttered, "Yikes." I swallowed hard. Not the words. Just my pride. Because my husband never stopped her. Not once. He just raised his wine glass and said, "She's doing her best." As if I was some slow broken bird. I stood to clear plates and she patted my shoulder like I was help. "Good girl," she whispered, condescending and cold. "You're lucky he married you." My legs went weak but my voice stayed buried. I didn't cry. I didn't speak. I just cleaned. But something in me, something old, silent, burning, clicked into place. I watched her laugh. I watched him ignore. I watched myself shrink in a room I paid for. And I knew this would be the last time I ever let her speak to me like that. Because what she didn't know was that her husband's failing logistics company, the one she boasted about at brunch, was about to change hands. I had the papers in my purse. Signed. Weeks in the making. And I wasn't just buying his company. I was buying her silence. Her pride. Her role. And soon, she'd be the one cleaning up the mess. Every broken woman remembers the moment she snapped back into herself. For me it was Easter. When they passed the gravy, and I passed the point of no return. I drove home with a smile on my face and blood in my mouth. Not from violence. From biting my tongue so hard it almost tore. But tonight, I didn't go straight to the kitchen to scrub dishes like I always did. I walked past the sink. Past the laundry. Past my husband sprawled on the couch playing golf on TV like nothing happened. And I opened my office drawer. The manila envelope was still there. Signed with ink that had dried 3 days ago. Brooks Freight and Logistics LC. Sale finalized. Yeah. The company wasn't under her husband's name anymore. It hadn't been for a week. Yeah, I might not talk much. But I listened. I heard them whispering about how the company was bleeding cash. About how they were looking for a buyer discreetly, didn't want their church friends knowing they were broke. So I made a few calls. Took money out of an old fund my grandma left me. Silent money. Sacred money. Money I had never touched, until now. I bought 60%. Quietly. Cleanly. Under a holding name that no one would trace back to me. Not even her. Especially not her. I made a rule that night. I wouldn't scream. I wouldn't cry. I wouldn't beg for respect. I'd make them feel the weight of my silence. I'd weaponize it. The next morning I made eggs like usual. He walked in, kissed my cheek, said, "Sorry about last night, Mom just gets carried away." I just nodded. "I understand," I whispered. He smiled, relieved. He didn't know that behind those eggs was a woman reborn. Later that day I walked into the company for the first time, not as a guest, not as the housewife, but as the owner. The receptionist looked up. "Can I help you?" I handed her a note. "Deliver this to HR, I said calmly. The top line read, "Terminate immediately. Margot Callahan, Administrative Coordinator, position falsified." Is her job. She lied to get it. Used fake credentials. Took over someone else's position and twisted her way in when no one was looking. But I looked. And I had proof. In a week she'd walk in like everything was normal. And I'd be waiting at the head of the conference table. This time with her son beside her. Not holding my hand. But holding the pink slip. He mocked the house I kept. Now she was about to see what I could build outside of it. Monday morning I arrived early. Not in heels. Not in pearls. Just a soft black suit, tied back hair, and eyes that had seen too much to ever look away again. The office buzzed around me unaware. I sat in the boardroom, hands folded, while HR printed her file and legal confirmed the time-stamped emails, fake degrees, name drops, and her little web of lies. At 10:06 a.m. I heard her laugh from the hallway. Margot Callahan. My mother-in-law. Hair done. Nails red. A clip-clop of entitlement on tile floors. I didn't flinch. She swung the door open like she owned the oxygen in the room, until she saw me, sitting at the head of the table. She blinked once. Then again. Confused. Vanessa? What are you doing here, sweetie? Sweetie. So. I looked her dead in the eye. No smile. No rage. Just cold truth. This is my office, I said. She laughed nervously. Wait, what? Her husband stepped in behind her, Mr. Brooks Sr., and froze mid-step. The blood drained from his face. Because he knew. He'd sold it. He'd signed it. And I wasn't the daughter-in-law anymore. I was the owner. I stood up, walked slowly to the whiteboard and turned it over. On the back, her resume printed in bold. Red circles around every lie. Margot Callahan, I said calmly, you've been drawing a salary for a job you were never qualified for. She stammered. This is absurd. I've worked here for years. No. You've sat here for years. That's not the same. Her husband spoke up. Vanessa, let's be reasonable. I turned to him. You were, I said quietly. When you took my money. She looked at him. What money? He didn't answer. Because shame doesn't lie, it just goes quiet. HR handed me the termination letter. I slid it across the table. You can sign it here. Or wait for the legal process to handle it. Silence. Then suddenly rage. You manipulative little girl, she hissed. You'll regret this. I stepped closer almost gently. I regretted swallowing your poison for years, I whispered. This is just the antidote. She didn't sign. She stormed out shaking. I didn't follow. Because that day, I didn't need her to believe in me. I needed her to see what I became, when she stopped pretending I mattered. And for the first time in years I wasn't invisible anymore. That evening I got home before he did. I laid the envelope on the counter. Quiet. Intentional. The same one she refused to sign. I didn't speak when he walked in. I just waited. He picked it up, scanned the header, termination notice, and froze. She got fired? He asked. No, I said softly. She was let go, for lying. He blinked, trying to smile it away. There must be some mistake. Mom would never. She claimed a degree she didn't earn. Took a job someone else deserved. She laughed at me for not working while faking a title she never qualified for. Silence. He set the envelope down like it burned his hands. Then turned toward me. You had her fired? I met his gaze. I uncovered the truth. Your father sold me the company to keep it afloat. You know that. You just never asked where the money came from. He looked at me like I'd just said something in a language he couldn't speak. You own it. I do. He sat down. And you didn't tell me? I leaned on the counter, my voice even. When she humiliated me in front of everyone, when you let her, did you tell her to stop? He didn't answer. Because there was nothing left to say. He was raised to protect a mother who never protected anyone. And I was raised to survive. He stood and grabbed his keys. I need air. He left. And for once I didn't chase him. Because somewhere between silence and strategy, I'd found something better than validation. I'd found myself. Later that night my phone buzzed. Not him. Her. Margot Callahan. You think this is over? My son will leave you. You'll lose everything. I stared at the message. Then I did something I hadn't done in years. I laughed. Not bitter. Not cruel. Just free. Because it wasn't about her anymore. It was about the version of me I had buried under 10 years of dishes, dinners, and dismissals. No. She was awake. Alive. And dangerously quiet. The next morning I filed for full legal transfer of the company shares into my own name. I sent a memo to HR. From now on we don't hire family based on favors. We hire women based on merit. And I included the final line she'd never understand. Being a housewife isn't a weakness. It's training. 3 days passed. No calls from my husband. No apology from her. Just silence. The kind I used to fear, now laced with power. Then on Friday I got an invitation. Dinner at their place. Handwritten. Like we were still pretending to be family. I almost tossed it. But then I thought, why not? Let them look me in the eye now. So I went. Not in pearls. Not in pastel. In a navy suit with clean lines and sharper eyes. Hair tied back. No makeup to soften the truth. I rang the bell. She opened it herself. For the first time in 10 years she didn't smile. She stepped aside without a word. The table was set. Formal. 6 plates. Her husband, her son, 2 of her sisters, and a neighbor she always paraded around to prove how polished she was. Everyone quieted when I walked in. Because now I wasn't the quiet daughter-in-law. I was the woman who held the deed to their pride. Vanessa, one of her sisters said with a fake little chuckle. You've really been busy lately. I smiled. Yes. Taking care of business. Margot's jaw tensed. He poured wine. Badly. Her hand trembled. Halfway through the meal she tried to reclaim control. So, she said loudly, smiling through gritted teeth, how's the housewife thing working for you? Got enough time to play pretensio now? I set down my fork slowly. Wiped my mouth. Then I looked at her like I finally saw her for what she was. A woman clinging to a mask that was cracking in real time. Actually, I said calmly, running a multi-million-dollar operation from home while handling legal, financial, and staffing decisions has taught me a lot about balance. Pause. 1 beat. I guess, being underestimated builds muscle. She shifted in her seat, tried to scoff. But her son, my husband, was staring at me. Not like before. He wasn't annoyed. Or angry. He looked unsure. Like he'd never actually seen me until now. Her husband cleared his throat. The company's doing well. Better than I expected. I nodded once. It's being led with intention now. Not ego. She stood suddenly. Are you here to embarrass me? No, I said softly. You did that to yourself. I'm just here to eat the dinner you invited me to. And to let you know, your replacement starts Monday. Her face fell. The silence was delicious. Sometimes dignity isn't about volume. It's about presence. And for the first time in her kingdom, she wasn't the loudest woman in the room. That night I didn't go home with him. I drove myself. Alone. Music low. Thoughts loud. When I got back he was already waiting, on the porch, head in his hands, looking like a man who finally realized he'd lost something, but didn't know what it was yet. Vanessa, he said when I stepped out of the car, can we talk? I stood still. Talk, I said. He rose slowly. You blindsided me. My mother's humiliated. My father's furious. You could have warned me. I nodded. I could have. Pause. But did you ever warn them when they humiliated me? He flinched. I didn't know it was that deep. No, I said, you chose not to know. Because it was easier to let me swallow the pain than confront the woman who raised you. He didn't speak. Just stared like he'd never really heard my voice before. I stepped closer. For years I asked you with my silence to see me. You answered with excuses. Defenses. A pat on the head. I was good enough to cook your meals. Keep your home. Smile at your parents' parties. But never good enough to defend. His face fell. I didn't think you needed defending, he whispered. Exactly, I said. Because women like me are supposed to endure, right? But the truth is, I needed a partner. Not a witness. Silence sat between us. Finally he said it. What do you want? I looked at him. Really looked. At the man I once adored. The man who said, I love you, with one hand while letting his mother cut me down with the other. I want space, I said. Time to remember who I was before I became your shadow. His lips parted but no words came. I turned toward the door. You can stay in the guest room tonight. We'll figure things out in the morning. He stood there stunned. Because this wasn't rage. It wasn't revenge. It was resolve. And resolve is always quieter than rage, but it cuts deeper. As I closed the bedroom door behind me I realized something. The house felt different. Lighter. Because for the first time in years, I wasn't trying to be small enough to fit inside someone else's life. I was building my own. Brick by brick. And if he wanted to stay, he'd have to walk through a door that I own now. Sunday morning I got the call. Margot had shown up to the office. Not for a meeting. Not to apologize. But to protest. She stood outside in heels and fury, waving a clipboard like a sword, demanding signatures from anyone who'd listen, claiming wrongful termination, nepotism, gender bias. Irony so thick it could choke you. Security didn't remove her. They didn't have to. Because no one came outside. Not a single employee backed her. Not the receptionist she used to belittle. Not the junior staffer she once told to wear more makeup to seem professional. They just watched through the glass. Some laughed. Some shook their heads. But no one stood with her. I sat upstairs in my office sipping green tea, watching it all play out from the security feed. It wasn't satisfaction I felt. It was closure. Poetic, brutal closure. Because power built on lies always caves in on itself. And that morning hers was crumbling. My assistant knocked gently. She's left. Yelled something about lawyers. Said you'd regret this. I smiled. Tell legal to prepare our side. Make sure every document is time-stamped, every file backed up. She nodded. Already done. Oh, and HR wanted to thank you. Said morale's never been higher. Funny. The woman who mocked me for not working. Now accidentally helped me become the best boss half the staff ever had. By the afternoon, Margot's protest had fizzled. The neighbor she bragged to unfollowed her. Her sister canceled brunch. Her reputation on fire. But I didn't post about it. I didn't gloat. I didn't even tell my husband. Because when you've been silenced long enough, your revenge doesn't need noise. It just needs evidence. That night I sat in the backyard with a glass of wine, staring at the sky. No more yelling. No more walking on eggshells. No more shrinking. Just peace. And then, the screen door creaked. He stepped out slowly, holding something. A folded note. He handed it to me and sat without a word. I opened it. His handwriting. I don't deserve your forgiveness, but I want to learn how to earn your respect. I looked at him. No tears. No speeches. Just a man unlearning the silence he was raised in. I nodded once. That's a start. And for the first time in a long time, we sat beside each other in the quiet. Not broken. Just beginning. 2 months later the house was different. Not in paint or furniture. In air. In rhythm. In me. The woman who once begged for a seat at someone else's table. Now owned the building. Margot never showed up again. The legal threats came and went. Empty, performative. Her husband stayed quiet, too ashamed to speak, too proud to apologize. And my husband? He changed. Not overnight. Not magically. But he started sitting with me. Listening. Reading. He helped pack lunches for women I hired into leadership roles. He cooked dinner once a week. Badly but intentionally. He showed up. One morning I found him staring at the framed photo of our wedding day. She really made you feel small, didn't she? He said softly. I didn't answer. Because the answer was already burned into every quiet dinner. Every night I cried in the shower. Every moment I doubted my worth. But now, he knew. He didn't defend her anymore. He defended me. And when people asked how I built the company up so fast, I told them. By doing what women do every day. Working twice as hard. Getting half the credit. And refusing to stay silent. I hosted a company retreat for the first time. Spoke on a panel about ethical leadership. And one Friday afternoon as I walked through the main floor, a young intern stopped me. Ma'am, she said shyly, you're honestly the reason I applied here. I saw what you did. How you took your power back. My mom's going through something similar. I just wanted to say thank you. I nodded. My throat tight. Because that was it, wasn't it? The revenge was never about making Margot small. It was about making myself whole. The next Sunday I hosted Easter dinner. To my home. No fake laughter. No cold digs. Just chosen family, quiet music, real joy. And as I set down the final plate I paused. Looked around. At the house I once walked through like a ghost. At the seat I used to be too afraid to claim. And I whispered to myself. You're not just enough. You're everything. Later that night I lit a candle on the patio. No big finale. Just silence. And peace. Because I didn't ruin her life. She just watched mine outgrow the limits she tried to force on me. And the most poetic revenge of all? She still can't understand how I did it. Without ever raising my voice.